really appreciate your leadership and taking the time to do this interview with us today. Thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
As always, we'd like to begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on, as well as our ancestors and those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We want to acknowledge our elders and community stewards whose shoulders that we continue to stand on as we build and share and learn together for our collective liberation. So again, thank you for being here, Sope. Can you go ahead and tell us about the origins of the work that you do right now, a little background for context related to the current community initiatives that you take on?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I got involved I work for Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada, which is a national apex organization for cooperatives across Canada, and is a leader and a convener of all things that are related to the cooperative movement here in Canada. And we also have a connection with the International Cooperative Alliance, which is a much larger and global cooperative organization that has a global reach. So I kind of got my start with the cooperative movement. I was actually overseas. My background, a little bit about my background is that I am an international development specialist. And I was working in the country of Ecuador, and I was working with women who were artisans that made crafts and jewelry. And part of my job was to share what the cooperative movement was about, and to encourage them to join cooperatives or join a cooperative in their community, and explain to them the benefits of cooperativism as opposed to working individually by themselves and toiling and struggling as just a solo entrepreneur. And so just seeing how the impacts of when these women did join the cooperatives, how it transformed their lives essentially, and in a lot of ways their communities and their families, just from the benefits that they received just from being within a cooperative. Certainly we're selling a lot more of their products, had access to more resources because of the strength in the cooperative numbers, and we're able to use some of the residual money that the cooperative gained to be able to reinvest into their community. For example, I know one cooperative, they put some of that money towards the school that was in their community just to help fix it up a little bit for, the children of that community. So that experience really made me just really love and enjoy the cooperative movement. And I said, you know what, I really want to continue to do this work when I come back to Canada. And now that was some years ago, but here we are in 2023. I got my start at CMC in 2022, and I have been given the opportunity to join the cooperative movement here in Canada, and it has been incredibly exciting and fruitful.
That's amazing that you were able to travel and have that experience and even see that, make that connection and look how long of an impact it's had on you from that international experience. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you share with us the core values of Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada?
Sure. So Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada, as I mentioned before, is a national apex organization for cooperatives across the nation. And it is a member-based organization that unites, engages, and leads the cooperative movement by advancing its priorities nationally, as well as internationally through the International Cooperative Alliance that we also work with. And the goals of CMC are to build bridges, to break barriers, and to create durable opportunities for the cooperative sector in Canada.
Oh, that's remarkable work. So in how important is innovation in the work that you're doing right now?
So innovation is it is a cornerstone of what I do. So my role at CMC is that I am the project manager for social innovation and social finance partnerships. One thing that I think innovation really became a key interest of the cooperative sector. It always has been a part of the cooperative sector, don't get me wrong. Just the structure of cooperatives, that is already innovative in of itself. But I think that in the last few years, innovation really came to the forefront for the cooperative sector and maybe other sectors as well because of COVID-19. We had to learn different ways of doing things. We were limited in how we could interact with others, and so that caused or forced people to have to start to innovate and think about the way that they moved on and did business in different ways. So innovation, I think, became a lot more top of mind, I should say, for a lot of industries and sectors, and the cooperative sector was certainly one of those sectors as well. One thing that really happened post-COVID was that, unfortunately, a lot of people who were sole proprietorships unfortunately had to close the doors of their businesses, whereas cooperatives, because they are collectively owned, were able to sustain themselves and to thrive during a time when a lot of businesses were unable to. And so out of COVID-19 and those aftershocks and the effects, there started to become a little bit of a movement or a push from the cooperative sector to help other struggling businesses to say, hey, there is a different business model that you could actually look at, which is by converting your business into a cooperative. There are tons of benefits of becoming a cooperative, but certainly, in order to, if you're looking to, for sustainability, longevity of your business, this is probably a better model that you should look at. So that's something that I would say that was a little bit of innovation there, where the cooperative sector, cooperative developers, people who work within the cooperative sector started to share this information with other businesses and say, you know what, it might be a better option for you to actually convert your sole proprietorship business into a cooperative, and we can guide you or connect you with folks that can help you to do this. Yes, innovation definitely was something that it really became top of mind for our sector, particularly post COVID-19. So just looking at different ways of doing things, and so through the Investment Readiness Program, which is a large part of my portfolio, we were sharing information about the Investment Readiness Program, as well as the Sustainable Finance Fund, which was launched, I believe, at the end of May, and telling cooperatives and other social purpose organizations that, you know what, the government would like to support you in building social enterprises within your businesses, so that within your organization, so that you can have some sort of create some sustainability within your business by having a self-generating mechanism to make money. We know that a lot of social purpose organizations rely heavily on grant money. That is not a sustainable model, of course. Governments can change and funding can be slashed or significantly reduced. And that's just the way things have been, but they don't have to remain that way. And so I think that the encouragement of social purpose organizations creating some sort of a social enterprise that both answers a question in society that is, that has to do with social justice, poverty reduction, and environmental and climate change, but then also brings a return of income to them. I think that is absolutely a beautiful thing, and something that should be pursued by such organizations. So a lot of what I did was encouraging sharing this information with the cooperative sector in the past year, guiding folks who are very interested in connecting with the right people that could give them more information, that could either help them with their business plans, that could do some feasibility studies for them, and all that, just kind of helping them to position themselves to be in a place where they could eventually at some point down the road access social financing. Oh my goodness, I should take a drink of water. Wow.
No worries, go ahead. But yeah, that's great to see cooperatives at the forefront of that sense of innovation, like you said, to be able to not only survive through the COVID-19 crisis, but thrive. It's remarkable to, that alone is something to really consider in the cooperative sector that maybe we haven't before. So thank you for sharing all those details. And dare I ask, what inspires you most about the work that you do now?
Well, that is really, and this is a loaded and interesting question, and it's one that I can answer honestly now. So unfortunately, the Investment Readiness Program it appears to be going away. There does not seem to be another iteration of this program, which is quite unfortunate. I have advocated for it to stay around, and as have other partners and colleagues in the ecosystem. So at this point, we are unsure if it is going to be renewed. But as someone who has to take care of herself, I started to look for new opportunities, but definitely wanted to stay in the area of innovation. This past year has been so exciting for me to just see what some of the cooperatives who did receive money from the Investment Readiness Program, just to see what they created. It's incredibly exciting. And one of the things that we're doing this summer is we're doing some storytelling. I myself and some of my comms colleagues, we have already interviewed 2 cooperatives and are going to be sharing their stories soon. And we're going to do a few more just because it's extremely exciting to hear and see what people have dreamt of, conceived, and implemented. So I was so encouraged and found it very fascinating to work with people who are innovating. And I knew that I wanted to stay in this area. So recently I accepted a position as the director of the Innovation Lab of an organization called CASE. And so I get the opportunity to continue to do the work that I have really enjoyed and love. And I'm really excited to continue to watch organizations and partners create and innovate. Like I said, our world has changed quite a bit in the last 3 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it has, for better or for worse, I think for better, it has asked people to have to look at different ways of living, look at different ways of doing things, look at different ways of operating. And as a result, innovation, I think, has been, it's an area that is really booming right now. And so I'm just really excited to continue to be able to do this work and see what other people are creating, and to be able to help, to be able to inspire, to be able to encourage, and to be able to support the work that other social purpose organizations are doing in the area of innovation.
Wow, well, congratulations, first off. It sounds like you're really excited about the opportunity. Can you tell us, what does CATE stand for? What's the abbreviation on that?
So CASE stands for the Canadian Association of Supported Employment. One of the things that in the last year that also came top of mind to me was that a lot of the work that the Investment Readiness Program really wanted to do was to really help support underrepresented groups in Canada to access this financing, because we know that the people who already are receiving this money, it's very easy for them to continue to gain access to different grants and different programs. And ESDC understood that there are many people who are being excluded and being shut out from different underrepresented groups. So in the past year, I had the opportunity to work with Indigenous co-ops, with co-ops that were either led by or serving Black communities, LGBTQ2+ cooperatives, that also served people who have disabilities. And that was one that really caught my mind, because I was really impressed by some of the work that the cooperatives that assisted people living with disabilities, some of the different work that they did. It's just quite fascinating to me. And when we talk about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, a lot of the times that inclusion piece is difficult for some of us to wrap our minds around, myself included. And so I started to, do a little bit more thinking about that. I currently am also consulting on justice, equity, diversity, decolonization, and inclusion with CWCF, the Canadian Worker Co-op Foundation. And so I've had to, for sure, sit with myself and ask, what does the inclusion piece look like? And so in this particular role at CASE, that is really the center of the work that CASE does, which is assisting people with different kinds of disabilities to be able to continue to thrive and live and have gainful employment, but also to receive supports in their roles to be able to thrive and to prosper. So that's a very long-winded way of saying of getting to the point, which is that the inspiration came from my previous role, and that kind of, I guess, it lit a flame within me to say, you know what, I would like to see how I can do some work in the inclusion area. And so and that's what I'm going to be able to be doing in this role.
I mean, that's definitely great and exciting. Definitely one of the perks of, the work that you do, being able to pivot like that and take on such an important role. So if we shift gears, can you share with us what kind of challenges or barriers you face in the work that you do, and how are you and your colleagues working to overcome them?
I think that honestly, one of the biggest challenges that I witnessed in the past year for CMC was just that at some point, now I can say this, I know I can say this. So at some point, the cooperative sector did have an agenda within the Canadian government. There was a whole entire agenda on the Canadian government radar for the cooperative sector. At some point, governments changed and that agenda was removed. And so now we're having to basically lobby again, advocate the government to put that agenda back on their table. And so I think that has been one of the biggest struggles for us, is that the cooperative sector is a very large sector in Canada. For it to not have an agenda within the government is quite odd, and it is a challenge to lobbying is not easy work. But that has been something that we have been working on over the past year, and certainly before I came to CMC as well. So I would say that would be the biggest challenge, is just kind of having to fight our way into rooms, or to increase our visibility and to amplify the nature of our work and why it's important and why cooperatives are so important in the Canadian landscape. You remove cooperatives across the country, and I'm not just talking about what you think of a regular cooperative. I'm also referring to financial cooperatives, which are some very large banks. Desjardins, that is a cooperative, that is a financial cooperative. So imagine we know of about 7,500 plus cooperatives in Canada. Imagine removing all of those from the economy, from the landscape, So it is a very important sector. And so we are just kind of continuing to have to do that work and to continue to advocate. So that, I think, has been a bit challenging, but although our organization CMC might be tiny, we are certainly mighty, and we've got a great group of people and colleagues that are passionate about the work that they do. And I'm very confident that we are going to be able to get this agenda back on the radar of the Canadian government.
I love to hear it. Like you said, the lobbying work is not easy, but we're so glad you're taking up the mantle to go after it. We definitely need more like you. So we are championing the work that you do. Can you go ahead and share any key set of priorities that you're working on right now, outside of, like you said, getting the attention for cooperatives?
I wish I had done this before. So, okay. This is something that needs to be edited out. I'm just going to go off.
Or maybe you already covered it with what you were saying about the government's agenda, and fighting for those cooperatives so that they're not, like you said, bringing the attention that we couldn't live without them. That could be your key set of priorities, but sometimes people have pressing ones they also want to bullet point.
Yeah, no, I can't. I think especially from the role that my role is so unique, that I think that essentially what I have already shared would probably cover it off. But key priorities, let me just, I will answer that question though. So some of the key priorities that Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada are working towards is certainly, of course, increasing our membership. We believe that we are, able to support and to provide resources, training, convene and connect cooperatives. And so increasing our membership is certainly a key priority of ours. And by way of doing that as well, we are also really wanting to increase our connection with cooperatives that are supporting or that are run and operated by members of underrepresented communities. That is something that is definitely a priority of Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada, and something that I have been working on quite a bit this past year. And I'm confident that they will continue to do this great work once I have transitioned. And yeah, so again, Cooperatives and Mutuals is just an organization that focuses on providing resources, connecting cooperatives to different resources, to education. So we just want to continue to do that kind of work in a very meaningful way for our sector.
Absolutely, that sounds good. And last question, how do you feel about the future of impact investing? What is your ultimate goal? Like, what does success look like for you and your team?
That's a really great question. I'm hopeful. I am someone I'm an optimist, and I believe in the ability and power of things being able to change or to transform. I think right now that impact investing looks very, it really is serving a specific sector of the Canadian population. It's not as inclusive as it could be or should be. And so I think that the future of impact investing is going to require a lot of diversification, both from people who are receiving investment dollars as well as those who are fund managers. All of it has to change in order to be reflective of the Canadian population. This is a very diverse country, and I don't think that impact investment, I don't think that it's reflective of what the Canadian population looks like. And so for me, success looks like the sector ends up looking like a reflection of the Canadian population. I want to see people of color in those areas. I want to see Indigenous leaders in those areas. I want to see Asian leaders and business owners in those areas as well. I want to see women. I want to see the LGBTQ+ community. It just needs to be a lot more reflective of. It needs to look like a mirror of what the Canadian population looks like in order for there to be any. That is my hope for the future of impact investment in Canada. That is truly my hope. I'll leave it at that. I don't
think anyone would argue with you there. It definitely needs to reflect the population. So for not only being here, but the phenomenal work that you do, you continue to do. I'm so glad to hear that you're, like I said, ahead of the innovation for cooperatives. We just want to close the way that we began the interview by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We want to acknowledge our ancestors and those who toiled without compassion or compensation, and all of our elders and community stewards whose shoulders we continue to stand on as we build and share and learn together for our collective liberation. So Sope, thank you once again for taking the time to do the interview, and thank you to our viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.